Good morning. This is the time and place for the Board of Oil and Gas Mining hearing. It's Wednesday, August 25th, 2021. I think what we'll do is just jump right into the briefing session. I'll turn the time over to Director John Baza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Hanson. This is John Baza. I'm the Director of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, and I'll be providing the board with a briefing this morning. Welcome to the hearing in Salt Lake City again. Glad to see all of your faces, and I think we're slowly but surely returning to normal in terms of our board meetings and our other public interactions with the division and the Board of Oil, Gas, and Mining. One of the things we talked about doing today, which is the first item on the agenda, is just take a chance to give you a kind of a basic overview of the division's business processes, as well as the host of new employees who we've hired through 2020 and 2021. And believe me, it wasn't easy bringing on new employees during a pandemic when everybody was working remotely, but we did, and I think everyone is performing at a really superb level for the division. I am going to share my screen, and hopefully I got this so it works today. Okay, someone will need to tell me if they're seeing this on their screens. Good. So the division several years ago, when we were trying to understand, well, how do we create better measurements of our work product in the division, we divided our business processes into 6 major processes, 3 of which are shared in common by the 3 regulatory programs: oil and gas, minerals, and coal. And you'll see a slide on this for the regulatory programs, but those business processes include the process of permitting, all kinds of permitting, not just new wells and new mines, but amendments and changes and all of the other approvals that the division does. The second business process is in inspection, compliance, and enforcement. That's an area that requires its own set of measurements. The third business process that our regulatory programs share is data management or information management, both the collection of information and the dissemination of that information. So as we go through this, you'll see those 3 business processes highlighted. The other 3 business processes that we've identified are the board. You have your own business process and your own set of measurements. We have the AMR program, which is different than any of our 3 regulatory programs. And then we have a broad category of administration, which includes things like finance and accounting, our geographic information systems, our public information process. All of those things fall under administration. So when we talk about new employees, we're going to talk about the 3 regulatory programs primarily, although AMR did receive some additional employees this year. The oil and gas program has the 3 business processes which I just mentioned: inspection and enforcement, permitting, and information management. The program has 26 full-time employees. It operates out of 3 offices: the Salt Lake office, the Vernal Field office, and the Price Field office. We have an inventory right now of over 16,000 active wells that need inspection. We have a set of measurements that says how often those wells are to be inspected. It includes monitoring activities such as orphan wells, including idle well management, MIT testing, observing pluggings, pre-site inspections for pre-drilling activities, responding to spills, and then, of course, our applications to drill that come in on a regular basis. We serve as the information hub for oil and gas production for various state and even federal government agencies. The reports come into the oil and gas program on a monthly basis from the operators. That's collected electronically. It's compiled. We actually have to ensure compliance when production doesn't get reported in a timely manner. And we process 8,000 to 10,000 requests from industry on an annual basis for various things. These include sundry notices, workovers, stimulations, pluggings, a variety of operations involving those 16,000 wells. If we look at what this year will produce in terms of applications for drill, we'll probably exceed 500, which is more than we've had in previous years. So that's probably a good sign. And it represents the industry's response to oil and gas commodity prices. The minerals program and the coal programs are also comprised of those three main business functions: inspection enforcement, permitting, and information management. The coal program has 9 full-time employees. We operate the coal program out of Salt Lake and the Price Field office. It is federally funded to a large extent based on a grant from the Office of Surface Mining Regulation and Enforcement in the Department of the Interior. We have 27 inspectable units in the state, 15 active operations, 8 inactive or reclaimed operations, and 4 abandoned sites. The coal program spends its time looking at new permits, exploration, significant revisions to permits, amendments, enforcement actions, things we call incidental boundary changes, midterm reviews, and bond escalation, which has to occur every 5 years, as well as bond releases. And the bond release process in the coal program is dictated by a fairly long time frame that OSM requirements are placed upon both us and the industry. In FY 2021, we took care of 67 permitting actions, 93 water monitoring reports, 248 inspections, which included 96 complete inspections and 152 partial inspections of those inspectable units. The minerals program has 9 employees. It is only based in the Salt Lake office, but covers the entire state. It is all mining activity other than coal. And so it's got a variety of mines and sizes of mines that it visits. Right now, in this past year, it was funded principally by general funds. But we had a change beginning in July 1st, where the minerals program now is funded 15% by permit fees, which we refer to as dedicated credits, and then 85% by a reallocation of the minerals severance tax. It used to be the minerals severance tax would go to the tax commission and then dispersed into the general fund and to other entities in accordance with a specific formula. With the passage of legislation this past year, we now have access in the division to those mineral severance taxes in a small percentage. So that is actually going to be the lion's share of funding for the minerals program. There are over 600 permitted mines to inspect and to keep up with the permitting activities. These include large mines, small mines, and exploration permits. The activity they are involved in the program is new permits, revisions, amendments, enforcement actions, bond escalations, which in minerals can be done on either a 3-year or 5-year schedule, and bond releases. In 2020, we conducted 311 permitting actions and 306 inspections. AMR is a non-regulatory program. Again, it is its own business process. You could probably look at it similar to a public works program, where we take the dollars that come from federal funding, which is on tax on coal production, and then we close off legacy abandoned mines in the state. Now, abandoned mines has a specific definition. It has to be a mine that was left abandoned prior to, I think it's 1977 or 78. But if it is a mine in that situation, we can actually use that federal grant money to go and secure those mines so they are not public safety hazards. We have 10 full-time employees in the program. It operates out of the Salt Lake office, but again covers the entire state. Reclaims abandoned mines before SMACR was passed. And I'm not sure what that note is about there, so I won't try to explain it, but it's 100% federally funded, as I said, from a tax on coal production. That actually has been somewhat controversial in recent years, because a lot of the work we do is on hard rock projects, and there is no companion tax on hard rock mining production that covers the abandoned mine reclamation on those lands. So we do use the federal grant monies that come from OSM. That is allowed, and we've been able to take care of quite a bit of work in the state. The 2020 work included 2 coal projects, Hiawatha Culvert Repair, Clear Creek Refuse Pile, then 5 non-coal projects, and they're listed there. So let me go into an explanation of who the employees have come on in the last 2 years. And I'll introduce this by saying some of these are new employees who have been hired in 20 and 21. We do have a couple of people in here who are older employees, but we never took the act of introducing them to the board when they came on. So we're trying to play catch up on those employees. But what I'll do is I'll show you a picture of each of the employees, provide you some background on the slide of what their experience and education is, as well as their main responsibilities right now. Megan Crocker is an environmental scientist in the oil and gas program. Megan was hired in June of 2020, and she came to us from previously working for the state of Oklahoma. So we appreciate Megan and her work that she's currently doing in the idle well program. And I think we're seeing great results from that. I think the measurements are showing that operators have responded. We're getting some good activity of addressing those idle wells. And the reason those idle wells are so important to us is because they're kind of the last stop before the well actually might become orphan. So it's somewhat of a risk management program to say if we're managing our idle wells properly, we're minimizing the number of wells that might go orphan someday. And because of that idle well management that both Megan and Dustin Doucette are involved in, I think the state of Utah is showing numbers fairly low in our count of orphan wells. And if you compared us with other states in the U.S. as well as even other states in the region, our numbers are quite low. And I put credit on that because we have an effective idle well management program. Another employee we'd like to introduce is Matt Hebbing, who is our new information manager. He took over for Don Staley, who retired at the end of last year. Matt has a master's in geology from University of Texas, El Paso. He's experienced in the industry. He worked in the Midland, Odessa area before coming to us here in Utah. And he's responsible for data management and project management involving our data enhancements and our database tools. John Still is an environmental scientist who we've hired to help with a lot of our permitting and our underground injection review. There's a nice picture of John with his favorite offspring sharing a nice tree. So John has an MBA in oil and gas management from Scotland, of all places. He's got experience in the industry, working in exploration and development, and again, we're glad to have his expertise on the staff. Ben Gilder, another environmental scientist, also doing work in permitting and UIC review. He has a master's in geology from University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and he's got industry experience as well. I think the one thing that you're seeing from both these pictures is we've been fairly fortunate to capture some fairly young people with industry experience who will really add a lot of value over time to our oil and gas program. Also in the oil and gas program, we hired Michael N. Bryson as an office specialist. And she's working in the information management arena, working with both our lead auditor, Bev Weiser, and also in helping with data input and data management systems. I should have mentioned when these people came on board, but Matt Hebbing came in March of this year. Ben Gilder came in June of this year. John Still was in May of this year. And Michael N. Bryson was also hired in June of this year. So some pretty recent hires. This is one of the employees that we had failed to recognize who has been on the division staff for several years, Todd Miller, and he's a biologist in our coal program. He's got a lot of experience, both federal experience and also working on research projects in southern Utah and northern Arizona. So glad to have Todd on board, and he's been a good experienced hand in the coal program now for several years. So really appreciate him. Justin Etchell is an engineer in our coal program. He's also someone we hired several years ago and somehow neglected to show his face to you at a board meeting. But Justin has grown up in Salt Lake City. He's been with us for several years, and he's quite the outdoorsman, as you can see. Kendra Hinton is a hydrologist in our coal program. She was hired on probably just before the pandemic started in January of 2020. And so she was on board for a couple of months, and then we told her to stay home. Imagine that. So she is a hydrologist. Chris probably recognizes her because she's had experience with Canyon Fuel Company. And she's got coal mining in her DNA. She's a fifth generation, I think, coal miner. So glad to have Kendra here and her experience. Matt Munson is a biologist in our minerals program. Matt was hired in November of last year. He's from Magna, graduated from Utah State University, and he also likes outdoor hobbies. Peter Nilsson is one of our most recent hires in the AMR program. He was hired in June to take on some project management work. And I think he is actually out in the field today working on what is known as the Peerless coal mine fire. It was a fire that started due to a wildfire earlier this summer, and it entered the workings of an old coal mine. And our division AMR staff is down there trying to address the problem before it becomes an even bigger problem and ignites some of the coal seam on fire. So glad to have Peter on. He comes from the Geological Survey. Levy Woodruff is a hire in June as a secretary in the AMR program. And she's got a lot of experience in administrative matters as well. Has a bachelor's degree in English from Westminster College. So glad to have her on. And then Kat Schooley was hired as a GIS analyst to assist Michael Van Hatten in some of the GIS work we do. And she has a professional GIS certificate as well as a bachelor's in environmental studies from USU. And she provides technical support and data analysis, as I said, in our GIS work group. Oh, Kat was hired in May of this year, so pretty recent hire as well. So that's kind of a run through of some recent hires. There's several people that we didn't include on the list that were hired in 2020. You've already seen their pictures. Bart Kettle, I think, introduced them at a board meeting sometime last year. That's Travis Gray, Mike Perkins, Colton Goodrich, Dow Gray, and Carson Pope. They were all hired into our oil and gas program in the February-March timeframe of last year. Carson has since taken a different job with the division. He's a new archivist in our Public Information Center. And so he took over for Vicki Dyson, who retired last year. And then two people that we didn't create slides on, but they're nevertheless important to the division. One is Eric Hyatt, who is our financial manager. And Eric was put in that position in June of 2020. And then Emma Doucette is a new office specialist in our front office area. Emma handles the phones and receptionist activity, works with Carson on some of the filing and archiving in our public room. So she's also another recent hire that we took on. So glad to have all these people on. I know that took a little time, but if you happen to run across these folks in your business with the division, please say hi and let them feel welcome. I'll take any questions you might have at this point.
Board members, questions? Just, I guess one. Clearly, there's been several new hires in just the recent past. A lot of them in the oil and gas division. Is this in an effort to bring you up to full staffing levels where you were lacking before?
There's two reasons for it. One is just natural turnover. We've had a graying of our staff over time, and so there were quite a few retirements actually that took place. And then as a result of the audit that we try not to talk about anymore, we did try to fill some vacant positions in order to come up to full staffing. We still have a couple of additional positions that we're looking at that will need hiring in the immediate future. But we also see that we need to put as much investment into our data systems as we do in our personnel, because that is really extending the reach of the people on the ground and the people in the office in terms of what they accomplish. So it's kind of a balanced investment between people that we want to hire and as well as putting money into new data systems.
Thank you. I just have one other comment. I was glad to see that I think the majority of the new hires were geologists. So that's a good sign.
Yes, it is. And as you know, there's a lot of give and take between the geologists and engineers in the office, but it's all in good fun.
We see a few heads nodding to the contrary.
Yeah. And we can make jokes about either group, whatever you'd like to hear. But
Mr. Baza,
yes,
does the money you get for the AMR program pay the salaries and administration costs for all the 10 employees in that program?
yes, it does. The federal grants come with what we call an indirect cost add-on, and that indirect add-on for each of the grants we get actually pays our overhead for employees. Well, with that, I'm happy that someone took care of me and stopped sharing my screen. But I'll move on to a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight for you. Want to thank Mr. Church and Ms. Garrison for coming to our annual Achievement Award picnic last week. It was a nice event. The rain clouds broke and we had a wonderful afternoon. It was catered by Pat's Barbecue, and you really can't go wrong with that kind of food. So we had a good time. But there were 2 awards that the division gave to employees. We only do this once a year, and generally it's only been 1 employee a year. This is the first year that we've recognized 2 employees. And the 2 employees we recognized, the first is Carl Housekeeper, who was in our Price Field office as a coal program employee. Carl just recently retired. In fact, he retired the Monday of last week that we had the Achievement Awards meeting. So Carl got, you might even call it a Lifetime Achievement Award because of the years he spent with the division and the good work he's done. The second annual Achievement Award went to Dustin Doucette, petroleum engineer in our oil and gas program. And, I introduced Dustin, gave him the award last week, and I said to the staff that he has informally been known as the godfather of the oil and gas program. And he said, well, maybe that's because I'm so old. And I said, no, it's because now you can ask for favors. But Dustin does a tremendous amount for the oil and gas program. I mentioned the idle well management program. He has served with expertise at board hearings. I find that when new people come on, and we've had a lot of new people employed with the oil and gas program, they'll often go to Dustin to ask questions because he's so experienced with the oil and gas program. So well-deserved in both cases, Carl Housekeeper and Dustin. It is the highest recognition award we give to the division staff. So glad to have shared that with the 2 board members who came. The only other item that I wanted to mention is that on the table in front of you, you'll see an invitation for Sloppy Joes with Steve. This is something that Department of Natural Resources has been doing annually. I think it has been known as Corn and Watermelon. Now it has a different title. But if any of you are around and would like to come, you are welcome and invited. You don't need to RSVP. There will be plenty of food, and it starts at 11:30 on Tuesday, the 31st, and we'll be hanging around serving food for a couple of hours. But please feel free to come and enjoy the ambiance of the Natural Resources Department. And Mr. Chairman, I think that's all I had. I would mention that I did get news that the Senate will likely be confirming the 2 new board members in mid-September. So we are going to be doing a board orientation meeting with those 2 members on September 1st. And we expect that they will be here for their first function at the September board meeting.
So does that mean we have to release Mike and Susan from indentured servitude?
It does, with a great deal of thanks. We will work on some kind of recognition and celebration, Mike and Susan. We won't make you come to the next board meeting. We will probably be recognizing you very heartily at that next board meeting. So
Perhaps they'll come anyway, just out of habit, right?
they might. We're glad to have them.
Well, we appreciate the service that both members have provided over the last 8 years and plus. And personally, I'm sorry to see them leave, but thank you for the wonderful service that you've provided. It's been a joy for me to be associated with these board members. Well, if there are no further questions for Director Baza or comments, I do need to make note that this would be the opportunity at this time for public comment. Members of the public who had wished to participate in the meeting electronically should have contacted the board secretary, Ms. Carter, at least 24 hours prior to this meeting. Julianne, did you receive any comments electronically for this public session? No? Thank you. Any members of the public I don't see any in here, so I'm assuming there's nobody needing to make a public comment at this time. We will adjourn this portion of our hearing, and we will resume at approximately 10 o'clock to hear the docketed matters. Thank you, Director Baza, for your presentation, and we'll adjourn and come back at 10.